So we're holding Be'ez Hashem siman lamed beis in haGuela, and we're talking about the fact that even in Mitzrayim, when Moshe Rabbeinu did Oisis and Moifsim, that's not what convinced the people of the truth of his being an Avi and being the Shliach of Hashem. The only thing that really convinced them was the fact that at Maimon Har Sinai they actually heard Hashem's voice speaking to him. The Rambam said that. Perches Yisod Torah. So he says, "V'roinu kazois." We see a similar thing. She'ein lahamin be'oisis uvenisim. We can't believe in miracles. You can't believe based on miracles. Mimasha omru atoisvis b'meseches soita yud gimel amud aleph b'kitzer ma dekasu b'pirkei de Rebbe Lezer perk mem ches. The Toisvis on soita quotes a pirkei de Rebbe Lezer. And since Tosfos quotes it very b'kitzur, they don't say every word. I copied off the Pirkei Rebbe Lezer here. You should have it in your pile. So, look in the middle of the page. By the last word in the line is just a reish, Rebbe Lezer. It says, you got it here. It's in that pile somewhere. Pirkei Rebbe Lezer. Rebbe Eliezer Omer. Hey Oisius, the 5 letters shekaflu b'Torah that the Torah repeats. B'Oisius, kulam b'soid haGuela. They're all the secret code for the Geula. So it says kaf chaf boy nigal Avram Avinu me'ur kastim. Avram Avinu was saved from ur kastim with the letter chaf. Shenamar lech lecha. Both ends with a chaf. Me'artecha. Mem, the letter mem doubled. Boy nigal Yitzchak Avinu miyad plishtim. He was saved from the plishtim. Shnamar lech meimanu ki yatzamtu mimenu ma'oid. I guess the word mimenu ma'oid both start with a mem. Nun boy nigal Yaakov Avinu. Shnamar hatzileni na. There's a nun close to a nun. Hatzileni na. And pei boy nigalu avosenu Mitzrayim. That's what that's how the Jewish people was taken out of Mitzrayim. Shenemar pakoid pakadti eschem. That Moshe Rabbeinu's words when he came to the Zakanim and he said, "I'm ready to do the redemption." He said, "Pakoid pakadti eschem." Hashem has remembered you. And then tzaddik boy asi dakodesh baruch hu ligal es Yisrael. That's going to be a future redemption. V'leimer lahem semach tzamachti lachem. I've brought a sprout for you, which is a word from Mashiach. Shenamar hinei ish tzemach shmoy umitachtav yitzmach. Uvana es heichal Hashem. There's a man whose name is Tzemach, which is Mashiach, and he will build the heichal Hashem. V'loy nimsru oisius. These signs were only given over. These letters actually were given over to Avram Avinu. V'Avram Avinu masra on Yitzchak. He handed them down to Yitzchak. Yitzchak master on the Yaakov. Yaakov master on the Yosef. Yosef master on the Yaakov. Yosef, when he was dying, he said to his brothers, "Pakoid yifkoid Elokim eschem." Right? The Asher ben Yaakov master soida geula l'Serech bas Asher. He gave it to his daughter Serech. That Serech was the daughter of Asher who lived for a very long time. She lived until the geula from Mitzrayim. Ukeshabah Moshe, but she was the only one who knew the side. Ukeshabah Moshe Aaron Eitzel Ziknei Yisrael. That Moshe and Aaron came to do the Geula. The Asu Isis, and they did miracles that Hashem taught them to do, which is to turn the stick into a snake, and to make his hand turn into tsaras. And then the third one was he took water from the Nile and he turned it into blood. So he did these signs in front of them, Leineim. So Halchus Ziknei Yisrael Eitzel Ziknasam Serech Bas Asher. They all went to their great grandmother Serech Bas Asher. V'Yamru Lo, and they said to her, Ba Ish. They said a man came. V'Asa Oisus Leineinu. He performed miracles in front of us. Should we believe him? Kach v'kach. They said these are the miracles. Amru Lahem. So Serech said to them, Ein be'Oisus halalu mamash. These miracles are nothing. Yeah. So Amrullah, they said to her, Bahaloy Omar, he said, Lanu, Pakait Pakati Eschem. Amrulahem, Hu Hoisha Asti Ligal Yisrael. Then he's the man. Then you can listen to him. Ligal Yisrael Mitzrayim. Shekach Shamati Me'aba, This is what I heard from my father. Shanamar Pakoi Pakati Eschem. Pay. She heard the words that the code is 2 words that start with a pay. Pakoi Pakati. Miyad Haminu Ha'am Belokim v'Moshe. Then they all believed in Moshe and in Hashem. Shanamar Vayamein Ha'am Vayishmu Ki Fakad Hashem Es Bnei Yisrael. Okay? So that's the Pirkei Rebbe Lezer. So you see the amazing thing you saw here. You see they didn't believe based on the miracles that he did. They believed only based on the secret code. Yeah. So, interesting, it's funny when at the sneh, at the burning bush, when Hashem told Moshe, go and tell the Ziknei Yisrael, Pakoi Pakati Eschem, right? Moshe was uncertain about that. He said, what if they don't believe me? V'hein lo ya'aminu li. So Hashem said, okay, so then you'll make the stick turn into a snake, and you'll do the saras, you'll do the oasis. But Chazal say Moshe was criticized for doubting the Jews. Why did he tell Hashem they're not going to believe me? Hashem said they're going to believe you. You're doubting Hashem. You're doubting the Yidden. You're saying lashon hara on them. That's why your hand has to turn into saras, because you're saying lashon hara on the Jews. But you see what it means now. You see, Moshe looked at it the opposite way at first. At that point in his life, he didn't understand this. So he thought, oisim is the most important thing. So he said, they're not going to believe me. So Hashem said, okay, I'll give you some tricks to do in front of them. Then they'll believe you. But really, it's the other way around. They're not going to believe him based on the oasis. They're going to believe him based on the fact that he said Pakoi Pakati. But he didn't know Pakoi Pakati was a secret code. Only Serech Bas Asher knew that. So, all right. So he quotes it here. And we'll skip to the end. The top of page Samach Tes, second line. V'chein mevur b'medrash Rabbah. The same thing is written in the Medrash Rabbah, Shmois, Perek Sif Yud Gimel. Ukeshaba Moshe Rabbeinu al v'shalom lavastram al haGuela. When he came to announce about the Geula, Yachal lo yhaminu ad shirahu ha'osis. You might think that they didn't believe him until they saw the signs. Loi. That's not true. Ela vayishmu ha'am ki fakad Hashem. They heard the word pakadati and they believed him. Al hashmua ha'aminu v'loy al re'iyas ha'oisias. They believed him based on the words that they heard from him and not from the signs. Uvama ha'aminu. Based on what did they believe? Al siman ha'pekida sha'am lahem. He said the word, the siman, the sign, the secret code of Pekida. They had a tradition going back to Yaakov, and it goes on, it says it came from Serech Bas Asher. Hu goyal shel emes. He's the true Redeemer. That's when the people believed. We see from this, see, like the Rambam says, that they didn't believe on him based on the miraculous things, because they had a tradition going back to their fathers. Now, so Rebbe asked a kasha now. Why did he tell him to do these miracles in front of the people? Moshe asked for it, it's true. He said, V'hein lo ya'aminu li. But Hashem should have just said back to Moshe, no, you're wrong. They're going to believe it. Why did he teach him to do the snake trick? Like, what's the point of that? They're not going to believe in him based on this. So he says, that was exactly what Hashem wanted. To test them, to see if they would believe based on the miracles. Ukamasha kasavti b'sifri vayol Moshe, Maimer Aleph Siman Kuf Nun Ches. Almash shekasav b'gemara, b'ava mitzia daf nun tes. B'ahu hai uvda de tanura shalach noi. There's a famous story in the Gemara above Mitzia about the oven of Achnoi, which was an oven that was made of pieces of earthenware that snapped together, and there was a machlokes Rebbe Lezer and the Rabbanan if it's B'kabel Tumah or not. So, Shehera Rebbe Lezer Agadol Moisid. Rebbe Lezer held it was Tahar. So he did. It says Hera Rebbe Lezer Agadol Moifsim Neroim. He made miracles to prove his point. Shenekar Hachruv Dalad Meos Amma. A carob tree moved 400 amas. V'chazru amas hamayim, the water in the stream turned backwards. V'gam naflu kois lebeis hamedrash, the walls of the beis medrash fell down. It says they were about to fall all the way down, but then Rabbi Yeshua said, no, stop. So they stopped in the middle, so they're leaning like 45 degrees. So v'achar kach hevi baskol, even Rebbe Eliezer even brought down a voice from Shemaim, shehalacha k'maisei, that the halach is like him. V'chol zeh lo yhoil klum, but none of this helped. Ki amru, because the other Tanoim said, Torah lo b'shamayim hi, the Torah is not in heaven. The Torah was given to us. And therefore they paskened not like what he said. Because the Torah is given to us, so we have a din achrei rabbim hatois, we follow the majority, and therefore we overrule you. Because Baruch Hu doesn't do miracles for nothing. Hashem knows everything. He knew that it wasn't going to help to send down all these things. They're not going to listen to it. Hashem also knows that Torah is not in heaven. You're not going to go tell me that Rebbe Eliezer HaGadol was able to make like from the Sitra Achra, from the Satan miracles. He says no. Rebbe Eliezer was a tzaddik. His miracles came from the good side. Why did Hashem go to the trouble of performing these things? Why did he send down a voice if they're not going to listen to it anyway? So the answer is, this is good for the story from which we learn this principle, that we don't listen to Oisis and Moifsim. V'gam al baskol, you won't even listen to a baskol. Imhu neged halacha. Kain havi toyelis gadol. There was a great purpose in giving these miracles. Be'elu hamoifsim. Shabbat was misitra to kedusha. They came from the holy side. The hoyres to teach us shafilu yavoy moifsim. Even if miracles happen, ein zeh hechreya keneged halacha. This does not outweigh the halacha. The Torah lo b'shamayim hi. This teaches us something for the future generations, like it says in the Ani Mamin. It says, Torah acheres me'es haboire. Hashem will never send another Torah. So this is the Torah, this is it. Hashem is not going to give a prophecy to some Navi to come and say some halacha. V'zeh Torah l'skal l'shein l'shayr. Hamaskil adav yispoinim v'zeh. V'shuv matzasi b'Rabbeinu Nisim Goin. Brachas Yutes and the base Mavur Kidvara. I see Rabbeinu Nisim Goin says the same thing, and I just copied the page, but I don't think we're going to have time to read it here. But Rabbeinu Nisim Goin in Brachas Daf Yutes and the base. If you want, maybe let's just read it because it's very short. Rabbeinu Nisim Goin. Very small print. Sorry about that. He says, why was there a bas kol if we didn't listen to it? Basically, how can you listen? How can you have Hashem speaking to you and you're not supposed to listen? So he says, based shuvas, there's two answers. Halachas ki bas kol loy amra shahalacha k'moisei b'davar zeh. The bas kol didn't say that the halach is like Rebbe Eliezer in this particular question. El b'chol makom, it said in general the halach is like him. Okay, that's not what the Rebbe says. Okay, stamu v'ef shalom ar ki b'chol makom zulas zeh makom kumalim. V'ashenis, if you skip down a few lines, v'ashenis shaloi haisa hakavana el nasois es hachachamim. The purpose of the bas kol was to test the sages. Im yanichu hakabal, if they're going to abandon their Messiah, should be yadam, that they know that the halacha is Torah lo b'shamayim, and they're going to abandon that. The Gemara should be fihem b'shvil bas kol, and they're going to go listen to this voice. V'im lav, if they won't. It's similar to the nisayin of a false navi. You hear that? He's comparing a real bas kol coming from Hashem to a false nevuah. He's saying Hashem was testing them. He's actually speaking to them and saying, Allah K'rv Lezer, but he wants them to say, no, we don't listen to the Bas Kohen. It was a test. Basically, that's what he says. So, back to this. Same thing happened when Moshe and Aaron came with the miracles. He wanted to test them if they're going to keep strong with their faith and not believe in the coming of this announcement of the Geula, only through the fact that Moshe said Pakoi Pakati. They were commanded, they were with an oath not to listen to this. And by the way, the reason why they were so careful about checking Moshe is because 30 years earlier you had Bnei Ephraim. So they didn't want that to happen again, so they said, let's make sure this is the real one before we go follow him. Ukvar pirashti masha omar akasuv v'haya im lo yaminu l'shtei ha'osis ha'ela. Now he goes on a side point here. He says Moshe had 3 signs. One was the snake, one was the tzaras, and the third one was the drops of the water turning into blood. So he says v'yadua shebechol makom amru v'haya hu lashon simcha. The question is v'haya, it will be if they don't listen to the first 2 signs. What's the simcha? V'haya is the lashon of simcha. Why is it a happy thing if they don't listen to the signs? V'chayr the simcha mazu oisa. What's the simcha? Okay, that's one question. And the second question is gam roy lahavina hevdil. What's the difference between sign number 1 and 2 and sign number 3? You have the page? Demadua loy shamu lishtei oisis arishonim v'yishmu l'kol oiso achroin. Why should they not listen to the first 2 and listen to the last one? What's the difference between the first 2 and the last one? The answer is, first question, the answer is, Hashem was happy. They stood up to the test. They didn't believe in the ISIS. As their fathers commanded them that they should only listen to a prophet if he says Pakoi Pakati. The second thing, until he didn't do another miracle to go against Avodah Zarah, that Moshe took for the water of the Nile. In the first of the 10 plagues, he's going to go and punish the gods of the Egyptians. When the Kodesh Baruch Hu punishes a nation, he punishes its God first. That they used to worship the Nile, which was one of their gods, and Moshe turned it into Dam. Rashi Yashan. Okay.
Like Titus.
What?
Like Titus.
What do you mean?
Titus made the Mishkan in the blood.
Oh, right. So he did the other way. Yeah. He had a nace to show that he was right, but this was a nace to show that the Egyptians were wrong for worshiping the Nile. By the way, there was the Rosh Kollel in Los Angeles, Reb Chaim Fassman. He's going to the Bracha. You ever heard of him? So he once said that when Kodesh Baruch Hu punishes a nation, he punishes its gods first. So who are the gods of the Soviet Union? The nuclear bomb, the nuclear program. Okay, yeah, of course, Lenin. But I'm saying, but in their power, what were they the most proud of? The nuclear program, the nuclear bombs, plants, everything that they did, right? So right before the fall of the Soviet Union, you had the Chernobyl disaster. So when the Kodesh Baruch Hu punishes a nation, first he punishes their gods, and then a couple of years later, you had the fall of the Soviet Union.
I don't think the fall of the cloud.
After the parentheses, V'ad oz loy hayu rishayim afilu lishmayaloi. Until so there was a stage. In other words, first he did the first 2 miracles. They weren't even allowed to listen to that. then he did the thing with the Nile that shows that he's being mevatel the avodah zara of the Egypt. Then they listen to him. They listened to him. But they didn't completely accept what he said. Only because he said the words pekod pekadti. So then, now he's going to have a kasha. The Rambam said that the Jews didn't believe in Moshe and Hashem until Har Sinai. You see here, they believed after pekod pekadti. So he says no. This Messiah, this tradition that Serech Bas Asher possessed, wasn't so famous. Eitzel Kol Yisrael. Wasn't everybody didn't know it. It was only given to one or a few individuals. That's why Moshe wasn't completely proven at that time, because they'll say, okay, maybe a few people made it up. How do we know it's true? Even after all the signs that Moshe did, they didn't believe in him in a permanent way. Here, it was only a way that they believed, but they could still doubt it later. He said, I'll do you a thing, I'll take you by Har Sinai, and then you'll know Da'anahu diapik cohen mimitzrayim. Now I took you out of Mitzrayim before. Ya'idei matan torah. Only through the giving of the Torah, believe here. That's when they had a full belief in Moshe Rabbeinu. Al kapanim kvar nishushu bazeh im am bnei Yisrael shaloi laham im anistim reniflois. There's a going back to the roots of Klal Yisrael. There's a tradition not to believe in just anybody who does miracles. Even if they're great miracles, even after all that was done, they still needed a real proof that it was Hashem who took them out of Mitzrayim. This is a very, very important principle in the Torah, not to just be impressed by miraculous things. That's why Rebbe Zera said, now going back to the story that he quoted from Brachos in Siman Lamed. Go to the story. The Gemara says that there was a Talmid Chacham that came to Rebbe Zera, and Rebbe Zera wanted to test him out, so he gave him a piece of bread, and he made a bracha, Moitzi lechem min haaretz. So why didn't he say ha moitzi? Because he wanted to follow both shittas, because both shittas agree that moitzi is good. But the Rebbe Zera got upset with that. He said, this is not a Talmid Chacham, so why not? So he says, if this man would have been a great man, he should have used every excuse to teach this fundamental principle of Emunah, the Klal Yisrael. Not to believe in miracles by themselves, because you can make a mistake. To teach this principle, he should have used the bracha hamoitzi. Even though by doing so he's not going to fulfill every opinion, he should have still should have done it. To teach us that even after the miracles of the Yetzias Mitzrayim, we could still have a doubt. That maybe they're not really from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They only knew based on Matan Torah. This had to be inculcated in the hearts of Bnei Yisrael. Two things. First of all, don't believe in miracles. And secondly, don't worry about being involved in a machlokes. Meaning, even taking one side as long as you teach this principle. And now, this is kind of a play on words, because that was a machlokes between Amoraim, between the Chashuva people. But here, or Tanoim actually. But here he says, Adrabah, Filum Kolo Olam Yiyu Bali Plukta. Even if you're against Zionism and you're against the war, against the fact that they showed alleged miracles in the war, and everybody else argues with you, Al Yispoil Minisim Greda. Don't be impressed by miracles by themselves. Zulas im nispar loy shehem misiter kedusha. Unless you know for sure that they're coming from the side of kedusha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu.